Okay, I realized that a bunch of students, since a lot of you guys are sophomores in the program, a lot of you guys have never actually gotten to animate on an actual character rig before. So this is me making another tutorial to show kind of the basics of animating on a character rig in general. Because I realized that the last video I made that has just like special things about the rig isn't terribly helpful if you guys don't know basics that a rig would normally have. So anyways, first off, here's a new project. You're going to go File, Create Reference, and then you're going to go to Assets, Characters, and we'll say the skeleton, right? So here's the skeleton. Let's go to my settings and preferences. We'll go under settings. Right now it's in centimeters. We're going to go to millimeters. Oh, wrong one. Hold on. I meant to go to meters. So there you go. Alright. So here's the skeleton. This big control on the bottom is a transform control. Basically, this moves everything. Additionally, there's also a master scale attribute that you can use to scale a thing, although you shouldn't be needing to do that. And then there's this other thing, body poly, smooth or unsmooth. So right now it's unsmoothed, but you can switch to unsmooth, as you'll see. Right, it's a little rougher on the unsmoothed. So by default, it's going to be unsmoothed. If you're moving around controls and stuff, and it's being laggy or slow, you're probably going to want to go to unsmoothed, right? Because that should make it faster for you. And if you're doing certain expressions or something, and you're unsure whether or not it'll look good in the smooth version, then you can just quickly go check, say, oop. That looks good, or maybe it doesn't, and make some adjustments, whatever, right? So I'm going to keep it on smooth for now. I'll take all these, and I'll set it to 0. Okay, so basics of using a rig. So when you're animating your character, it's a good idea. You probably want to place this transform control somewhere, right? And then suppose you're doing a walk cycle, then you can use this cog control, and it's called cog because it stands for center of gravity, right? So the cog control is usually at the center of gravity of the character. For today, I am going to actually show you. So we'll say, frame 1. We'll start the character in, a little bit more like that. So in case you don't know the hotkeys, right? Q is to just be in selection mode. W is to be in translation mode. E is to be in rotation mode, right? And R is to be in scale mode. You shouldn't really be scaling too much of the controls and stuff, but that's there if you need it. So how you animate on a rig is, suppose I'm doing a walk cycle, right? I've placed the hips down like this, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to have him kind of pushing his hips forward, maybe reaching up a little like that. And I said, hey, you know what? I like this pose. Now I'm going to do what's called, I'm going to create a key, right? I'm going to set a key on this control so that you can have multiple keys and the animation will play through those. Alright, so we've set it there, right? And there's a couple ways to set keys. One is to press S. If you notice on here, all these things turned red. That means all of these have a key somewhere, right? If they're pink, that means they have it somewhere. If it's red, that means they have a key on this frame, right? So S sets a key for all those things. Sometimes you don't want to set a key for all of them, so what you can do is you can press Shift and then one of the hotkeys for certain things, like for instance Shift W would set a key for just the translate, right? Because translate, or W is the hotkey for translation, right? E is for rotation, R is for scale. So if I wanted to do just the rotation, I could do Shift E, right? So Shift W, Shift E, Shift R, right? Additionally, let's say you just want to key one attribute of that thing. You can click on this. You can say, okay, I just want to key the rotate X. And you can go down here, right click, and then say key selected. Right, it'll create a key right there. So for now, let's just say, oh, we'll just do S, right? We'll key all of the positions there. And then we'll say, hey, you know what? I want this foot to be forward like this, right? And this right now, I'm in IK mode for the legs. If you guys don't know what IK or FK mean, IK stands for inverse kinematics, and FK stands for forward kinematics. Basically how forward and inverse kinematics work, or FK and IK, are in inverse kinematics, you place the ends of something, right? So in this case, it's the leg. You place the ends of the leg, and then it figures out what to do in between, right? So when you're animating walks, for instance, you're pretty much always going to be doing it in IK, because it's way more convenient to be able to place the foot right where you want it, instead of having to control from the top down, right? On that note, FK, or forward kinematics, means you control from kind of the top down hierarchy-wise, right? So this control is functionally a parent of this next control, right? Which is functionally a parent of this last control, right? So that's FK. And the reason why, as you can see, this is inconvenient for animating walk cycles is if I wanted to get it on the ground, I'm going to have to kind of figure out how to rotate this just where I want it, and that one, and here, and then I say, oh, you know what, that's still a little above the ground, so then I have to readjust, and it's just super inconvenient, right? So when you're animating walk cycles, you're going to want to have them in IK probably, right? And in order to change from IK to FK or back, there's these little red teardrop shaped controls, and as you can see on them, there's an IK FK switch. So, and if you don't know what I'm doing right now, you can click on an attribute and you can middle click drag in the viewport here, and you can drag from side to side to increase or decrease the values. In this case, this attribute can only go from 0 to 1, right? But suppose we wanted to do it with this foot, and let's see, so that's translate Z. So suppose we wanted to change this attribute here. You can click on translate Z, go in the viewport, middle click, drag, right? So that's something that's helpful to know just in general. But anyways, so let's pose this foot. I'm going to put it kind of right over here. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I like that. But I actually want him to be kind of stepping back on his heel. So I'll key where that foot control is positioned. And then if I click off of that, do you see all these little green controls are for easier IK foot placement stuff, right? It's for easier posing. So there's this one on the back, and you should play with all these, kind of figure out what they all do. There's this one on the back that does the heel, right? So we can bring it up from the heel. And we can say, okay, I want that posed right there. I'm going to stage that by pressing S. Or I'm going to set a key for that by pressing S, right? And let's move this. Right, we say, hey, you know what? I think that's good. Let's move on to this back foot. Right, you can move it back this way. Right, and this one's going to be kind of up on the toe because he's stepping forward. Right, so we can actually take this control right here, this green one, and you can click on that, rotate it forward, and this one moves him up on the ball of his foot. Right, so this one's super convenient for animating walk cycles. We're going to key that, take this one, move it further back, set a key. Right. Yeah, anyways, so that's kind of the basics of how you use a rig. Ooh. We'll say for now, we're going to kind of have them stepping all wide, right? For the arms, it's often more convenient to have them in FK, right? Because when you're doing a walk cycle, FK is really nice for getting easy, quick arcs, right? In your movement that look good, because you can just kind of rotate them around and you're always getting this nice smooth arc, right? IK is nice for making kind of movements that go in a straight line. For instance, putting your foot on the ground, right? Your foot's going to move in a straight line. Or if you want to punch your arm, sorry, here's part 2. Suppose you want to punch your arm forward, you'd want to do that in IK as well because that's more convenient than having to do it rotationally, right? But let's say you want to pose the arms, then, you know, we can kind of go here and say, let's pose this, right? And you can change all these, do whatever, and then when I've posed them how I want, I can click on these controls, and I can press S to key them, right? And I could do that with the other arm. We'll just kind of put it back like this, right? So now on some of these controls we've set a key. Now it's not going to be animated because we've not set any other keys. But suppose we were to do that. And let's scale this down. So this right here changes what frames you're looking at. And then these numbers on the side change what are the max and minimum frames that you can look at, right? So you can go kind of like this, move this around. And suppose I want to go farther than this, I can. But right now I'm just going to set it to, let's say, 48 frames. All right. And for this one, we'll kind of put it back. We'll just key that for now. And put this one forward, key that. And obviously this isn't going to look good, but, you know, you have something kind of like that. And if you wanted to, you could, suppose I don't like when this key has been placed. I can, you know, select however many ones I have a key there for. I can shift left click on this, and I can move it around, right? And if you want, you could expand this if there were other keys there, and you could move those around too. But suppose I just want to move it forward a little bit. Then we can say, okay, now there's a little more spacing in between those two keys. And now, in between, we can kind of, you know, put this one here, and put that one there, right? So now it looks like he's kind of walking, right? It's kind of a terrible walk, but it's a walk nonetheless. Then let's also go through the face controls. So on the face, these controls you actually might want to be scaling, rotating, translating, doing whatever, right? But there's all these little circle controls, as well as this one in the middle and this one on the nose, right? All of these smaller controls directly control things on the face, right? These bigger controls, and there's 3 of them, actually drive the movement of some of the smaller controls, so you can get quick and easy animation without having to animate all the little ones. So if you want to do like eyebrow raise, you know, or, you know, angry, sad, you can kind of, you know, look at that a little. This one, if you rotate it up, it makes them smile. Rotate it down, it makes them frown. Rotate it out and in. So we give them a real big smile, right? And we could move it down, or we could make him have a tiny little mouth and say, like, oh, oh. Right? You can rotate it back and forward, and all sorts of stuff, right? So that's kind of how those work. And this is kind of included in my other video, but these different controls have operating space attributes, and that basically determines when these are going to move, like who they're a child of, right? So if I wanted to, I could set this to world, and then even as the transform control moves, the foot won't, right? Or I could set it to hip, and then as the hip control moves, so will the foot, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can change things. This could be helpful, for instance, if you wanted to put the hand on the hips, right, and make him do a little dance. And you can put the hands on the hips, and then you can set the operating space to the hips. Oh, sorry about that. I've already moved the hips, so he's going to move the control as well. and then you can wiggle the hips and they handle move with it, right? So it's really easy to give him a little jig that he's doing, right? Or you can put it on his chest, move his chest around, on his head, move his head around, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, anyways, that's basically the basics of how to use a rig. You know, when you're doing walk cycles, you're going to want to animate an IK. Your arms, maybe you're going to want to animate them at FK. Yeah, basically you pose a control somewhere, and then you press S to key all of these, or you can press Shift and the hotkey for that thing. It's like Shift W, Shift E, Shift R, and I'll show you on this. Shift W, Shift E, Shift R. And those will do just that set of things. Or again, click on the attribute, right click, and say key selected, and it'll do just the one. Yeah, another thing that you should know about is, so you can go to, right, we're in the animation tab, you can go Windows, General, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. So the Graph Editor is a super useful tool that you should usually be using for your animations, because it lets you change the interpolation between values, right? So for instance, let's suppose we have, let's delete all the keys on this one. Oh. Right click, delete. Let's get rid of that. Let's put all those to 0. So let's suppose on the first frame of this, we're going to have it on the bottom, and then in the second frame, or a few frames later, we'll have it up here, and then a few frames later, we'll have it down at the bottom again, right? So as you can see, it goes up and then down, right? You can use the graph editor to say, hey, you know what, on this control, and if you click off the control, it'll click out of there. You can see on this control, I want to look at the translate Y, because that's what's changing, and I want to change the tangent type, right? So right now they're stepped. If we want to, though, we can say, hey, you know what, I actually want it of this different tangent type. This one's called spline. Clamped is nice. Spline is nice. It's plateau, right? But for now, we'll say this one, right? And as you can see, now it's got in between stuff, right? And we'll say, hey, you know what? I want a little more hesitation at the beginning, and then kind of in the middle. You can use that kind of tangent, and it moves a little different, right? Anyways, you can adjust these curves. You can move the keys themselves and their value. You can do all sorts of stuff here. This could be helpful for posing things with nice arcs, nice transitions, nice spacing and timing in your animations. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have to go through, use whatever stuff you did in here, and then you're going to want to do keys every 2 frames, right? So you'd want to set this one here, and then you can go through in the graph editor, and you're going to want to set all of these to stepped, right? Because that's the style that we're going for animation-wise. We're animating on 2s. Anyways, so yeah, I hope that helps for anyone who doesn't know how to animate with a rig, which should be a lot of you. Yeah, I mean, let me know if you have any questions. I should be able to help with whatever you got.